Hello, this is Writers at Work, a podcast for readers and writers about the joys, heartaches, challenges, and satisfaction of the creative writing process. I'm your host, Jim Fusilli. With me on this first episode of Writers at Work of the new year is Lauren Rothery, author of Television, her debut novel. If you visit laurenrothery.net, you'll find links to a number of short films she wrote and directed. As for Television, it's an intriguing, cleverly told novel about Verity, a famous actor who, after appearing in a hit film he detests, announces he will hold a lottery to give away the $80 million he stands to make from the pitcher. Another primary character is Helen, an insightful, often cynical woman on the periphery of the entertainment business and who Verity wishes were his wife. Then comes Phoebe, an aspiring screenwriter who can't seem to stop fantasizing about writing in order to actually write. The novel has a lived-in feel in which we, the reader, swim in the characters' thoughts that are often mundane, occasionally astute, and always revealing. Lauren Rothery, welcome to Writers at Work.
Thank you for having me.
Let me get this out of the way. Is that you in Beck's video for Dark Places?
Yeah, it is.
See, the biodata on you is pretty sparse, Lauren.
Yeah, I kind of keep myself off the internet for the most part.
But I did find it. I did find it. But I want to talk about your films before we get into television,
Sure.
because I found them on your website and I enjoyed them. When did you make them?
I was making films for most of my 20s, so I guess from about 2012 until COVID, really.
Were you thinking about a career in film?
Yeah, I was trying to I was kind of working like every possible odd job on film sets to pay for my own film, to learn how to make shorts and music videos and things. But it was quite difficult to scale up to making something feature length.
And where did you go to school?
I went to school for, I didn't actually graduate university, but I went to Otis in Los Angeles for 2 years,
Okay.
studying art. And then I studied costume design in London for a year.
So let's talk about when it first occurred to you that you wanted to tell stories.
Sure.
Um, did you in your mind see film or did you see prose or were you always a storyteller of some type?
Yeah, I always wrote a lot for myself, but films I kind of came to just because I loved movies so much and I was interested in working on set. But the more sets I was on, the more obsessed I got with just trying to figure out how to do it myself. And it takes a few years to figure out your own way of telling a story and what you like and what your own taste is and how to try to meet your own taste, I guess,
Yeah,
with your
yeah.
work. But prose, I really started taking more seriously during COVID when I couldn't really shoot. And I was out in the middle of nowhere in France and just started writing stories all the time.
Huh. And is that when television, the seeds of television came to you?
A little bit, yeah. I'd probably written a couple of stories. And I thought of the lottery in television, and I thought maybe it would be a story. And I was sitting on the couch with my boyfriend and sort of explained it to him, and he said, "That sounds like a novel, not like a story." And I wasn't really sure if I could write a novel, but I thought that I could maybe try and write something I would like to read, and it would just be as long as it was. And yeah, it became a novel.
Yeah. I enjoyed the story, but more so I enjoyed the way that you told it. Um,
Thank you.
you expose us to Verity's thoughts on a given subject, and then Helen's. Often they agree on the general facts of what happened or is happening, but they aren't having the same experience.
Yeah.
Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, definitely. I was kind of interested in two people who've had this very long relationship or interaction with each other who don't disagree on what's happened, but they disagree on what is significant or what's important.
Yeah. What I find interesting. for a young writer as yourself is that Verity is immature, and I think that it's referred to directly. But Helen is a fully formed woman.
Yeah.
She's a grown up, a real grown up. Um, how did you like writing her?
I loved writing Helen. She was probably my favorite character to write. I felt really happy and calm when I wrote her. I think I relate to her in the sense that it's like if she can find a way to write about something that amuses her, she can make herself all right with it.
Right. I don't know if you have this experience when you're reading or when you're watching TV or film, but every now and then I'll think to myself, boy, I wish I could talk to that character.
Oh my gosh, all the time.
Yeah. And I feel like if I could, have a few minutes with Helen, it, I could help her a little bit.
Yeah, I'm
Because
actually.
I don't think she's very far from, um, substance. If maybe that's the wrong word, but she's uh, Verity is just living in a distant planet, but she's pretty close to reality.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, in a way, maybe that's what sort of interests her about Verity is that he's able to keep himself sort of hovering above the ground in a way.
Yeah, he's high risk and low risk at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good way of putting it.
So why the names Verity and Helen? We know Verity is derived from veritas or truth. Does the name Helen symbolize anything to you? I read somewhere that from ancient Greece it means ray of light.
Yeah, I actually don't know how I came across the name Helen. Character names are always sort of mysterious to me. It's similar with the name of a book. Something occurs to you and it either doesn't feel right or it does feel right. And I think she just felt like a Helen at some point.
She is a Helen.
Yeah,
That's when you get the name wrong, it's just awful.
that's awful.
I published a novel that was well received, and I hate the name of the primary character, and
Oh no.
I can't bear think about it. Anyway, I ask about the names because you are quite careful in concealing who is conveying what actually happened, right?
Yeah.
Helen's thought processes seem more reliable, but
Yeah.
but where is the truth in their relationship, and the view of the world at large? Who is more reliable, do you think?
Well, it's such a good question. I tend to think that with relationships, the truth is always somewhere in between the two people. People have such a way of narrativizing their own experience, and what they tell you about their past is liable to change based on what point they're at in their life. I
Right,
really like the way that Janet Malcolm writes about you can't necessarily trust someone just because they appear trustworthy on the
right,
page.
right.
And I think they're both right and they're both totally wrong. Helen's probably a little more reliable than Verity.
Yeah. Verity has this interesting tactic, I think, where he says, if I do this, it'll be really stupid. And then he does it.
Yeah.
And therefore, and he fulfills his prognostication.
Yeah, I mean, he has a point at the end where he talks about with addiction, his desire is not necessarily, alcohol or women or whatever the thing is that he's addicted to, but the desire is to relinquish control. I think he has a kind of desire for chaos that doesn't make sense to him exactly, and that he doesn't totally investigate. And sometimes he finds himself doing whatever would be the most chaotic thing to do.
You at one point you have him making a list of what he will do, and it says could be drunk for 2 weeks. Next point, detox. Next point,
Yeah.
shame. And
Yeah.
he's anticipating a negative outcome, but he proceeds anyway. Um, Let me see.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been my experience.
You know,
People who are in the throes of an addiction, it's not necessarily that they think it will go well, you know.
yeah.
They just do not feel free to abstain at a certain point.
What do you think Verity's addiction is to? Um, it seemed to me that the substances were um, not as important. I mean, I think he's addicted to self-loathing.
Yeah, maybe.
You know,
I mean, I don't know sometimes. I think there's some self-loathing. I think there's a feeling of almost like complacency or embarrassment about himself. I think he's
jeez.
definitely embarrassed by what he thinks he's been given. He has that kind of like American obsession with merit. Uh, and earning what you have, and he doesn't think he's earned anything, and it's almost like the less that he tries, the more comes to him, which I think he doesn't like.
Right, right.
So maybe he's trying to make his own life worse because he thinks that's what he that would be more fair, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But it keep what's good and desirable keeps coming to him anyway.
Yeah.
And so previously I said, um, whose view of the world at large is more reliable? I probably shouldn't have said world at large. I probably should have said Hollywood, which, as you know, is a different world than the world at large.
Yeah, very much so.
How did that happen?
You mean writing about it?
No, how did we have this multi-billion-dollar industry that takes up a nice chunk of a beautiful state, and it
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it doesn't have any rules that we recognize.
Well, I mean, I think it does in a way. I think there's something quite, it's so capitalist about Hollywood, and that has that reflection of like people in Hollywood. There's an idea that if you're good enough, your work will rise to the surface. And that's just so often not the case.
Right.
There's so much luck involved, but I think that's very American. American society is just like that too. And the way that sort of ideals and of art and of beauty and human truth are they and enjoyment and fun, they go right alongside. But we have to make money. We somehow have to make money out of this, which means some people have to suffer. um, that's quite capitalist as well. I think that
Yeah.
Hollywood is just like, it's almost like a Disneyland version of like capitalist society or something.
Yeah. I have in my mind this vision of a baker using the wrong ingredients, dropping the cake on the floor, stepping on it, cooking it at the wrong temperature, and yet it comes out as a beautiful cake. Whenever my experiences in Hollywood are quite limited, but whenever I'm involved in anything, I think to myself, this is not the way things get done. And this,
Mm,
how does any of this make sense? And this is not going to work. And then, of course, it works. And we have these beautiful films and these beautiful TV shows as evidence of it.
yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, it's fun too because Hollywood changes so much through time. Like, if you look at how Buster Keaton was making The General, there's a shot where he just blows up a bridge while a train is crossing it. And it was the most expensive shot that had ever, by miles that had ever been done in Hollywood. And it's, you just picture all these guys with the camera and just a bunch of dynamite, like trying something. You'd never be able to do it, probably rightfully so that way today. Like in one battle after another, they have the most amazing stunts and explosions, but from what I can tell, they were extremely safe about the process. Um,
there's
yeah.
something you pulled off that I really admired. As physically beautiful as they may be, many of the people in your story are unattractive and unappealing.
Mm.
Yet I never wanted to escape from them. I wanted to know what was going to happen to them. And
Yeah.
and I was thinking that you, as the writer, are simultaneously intrigued and repulsed by the industry. Is that so, or did I make that up?
No, I think that's probably true. I was always, like at the fringes having a hard time. I was like Phoebe having a hard time funding anything and just finding film to be so prohibitively expensive to make anything. And there's certainly a lot of like falsehood and sort of phoniness that I feel repulsed by. But I do hope that it's obvious in the book that I love the movies. I think there are brilliant people working in film and just brilliant movies coming out all the time. And I think it's one of the most transfixing mediums, even with a kind of bad movie. It's like transfixing to be in
Right.
the theater watching it, you know?
No, it's like a bad bottle of wine. I mean, how bad could it be? It's wine, you know?
Yes, the spectacle of it is always interesting. I mean, one of the
Right.
ways I learned how to write when I was trying to write screenplays was I'd go see movies that I knew I wasn't going to like, and I'd try and find three or four things that could be done differently that
Oh,
would make me like the movie while I was watching it.
fascinating.
I think you can learn a lot about what you like by what you don't like. You know, they're so close. They're always so
Yeah, yeah.
attached to one another.
This is a sort of sidebar question, but are there any works of art that depict the film industry in a positive and appealing light?
I mean, I'm sure there's always kind of a mix. I think that, you know, like Eight and a Half, I sort of find his like circus view of filmmaking quite appealing, but there's a lot of sadness to that movie as well and frustration. Or like Day for Night is just like chaos the entire time.
Yeah. You,
I don't know. Yeah.
living in France, you saw Call My Agent, I'm sure.
Call My Agent. I don't think I've seen Call My Agent.
Okay, yeah. In France, it was called 10%,
Okay.
10%. Um, and yeah,
And
no, check it out. I think you'll love it.
yeah, it definitely will. It sounds good.
Yeah. Um, okay, I lost my train of thought. Okay, let me get my train of thought back on. Okay, anyway, back to your novel, the idea for the lottery. How did you come
Yeah.
up with that?
I honestly have no idea. I was just thinking I just thought it would be funny. Like a lot of times, things that end up being the ideas that stick for me are just a little thread of something that makes me laugh, and I can't tell what about it makes me laugh. And so it's kind of following it that I find out what interests me about the idea. But I don't know why I thought of
It's genius, you know. I mean,
it.
no, it really is. Somebody buys a ticket to see a picture, and they're automatically entered in a lottery in which they can win something like $80 million. Of course, ticket sales skyrocket. Um,
Right.
and no,
Which means they
it's
win more money.
right. Have you heard from people on the business side of the industry about your idea?
The only thing that I've heard is that I think people in movies like the sort of detail so far about you know, the percentage driving up the actual pot. And I think there's like something about, you know, having to pay people to watch a movie in a way that's maybe sort of funny. But yeah, I don't know. It's like plot for me, it's like I'm obviously not that plot heavy as a writer. And I kind of liked the idea of writing a book about Hollywood that's quite the plot's almost like a little bit uncinematic in how it's depicted. I was thinking about the like Down by Law, you know, the jailbreak movie
Right.
where you don't see the jailbreak.
Yeah.
So the lottery it gets told, but only like peripherally, and the drama's like within this this relationship instead.
A few years ago, Prince, if you bought a ticket to his concert, you got a free copy of his latest album.
Oh, right. Okay.
And that the cost of the album was in the ticket.
Uh-huh.
So technically it wasn't free. And he had a number one album because of that.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah, it's a good way to send yourself up the charts.
Right. So, I mean, I'm fascinated by this. I go to the movies quite frequently, and
Right.
I would definitely go see a movie more than once if I could win $80 million
I
doing
know,
so.
I would too.
And the closer we get to the end of the book, the more we have to be secretive. We can't give away too much. But
Sure.
I'll just say that the winner of the lottery, that was genius also.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. Okay, so anyway, we're fairly deep in the story when you introduce Phoebe.
Yeah.
Tell us about her, would you?
Yeah, so Phoebe, on its face, she's not connected to Verity and Helen. She's a young filmmaker who lives in Los Angeles, but her grandparents die and they lived in France. And so she goes to France to kind of organize their house and try and write a screenplay. And I sort of like the idea of of leaving Verity and Helen's sort of hermetically sealed dynamic, but also being with somebody a little bit younger who has slightly different frustrations with the film industry and in her love life
Yeah,
as
you
well.
you include many pages of the screenplay she's working on, and there's a lot of promise in those pages.
Yeah.
The dialogue, the ideas contained in the dialogue, but it doesn't go anywhere, and she stops writing and is very self-critical to the point where
Yeah.
she says something like,
Yeah.
find a new career path or something like that. And we see this, we see this in new and newish writers, don't we? They give up when it gets challenging, when they have to go
Yes. Yeah.
beyond their strengths.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I mean,
think there's a kind of obsession with getting to the end of something. It's like getting to the part where you're successful rather than enjoying the struggle for like that's the point of writing is the writing. Making the movie is a separate thing, or publishing a book is a totally different thing.
I agree with you. I think one sign of a professional or would-be professional writer is that they enjoy the most difficult aspects of it and understand
I totally agree.
that's where the value is. That's where you're going to
Yeah.
find out what you're really doing. If it's breezy and easy, um, it's just going to be breezy and easy.
Yeah, and as a reader or as like a watcher of movies, it always feels like the stuff that's the most enjoyable is the stuff that somebody really had to go through quite a lot to get
Yes,
of themselves, that friction makes so much beauty and things that are so interesting to take in.
that's a lovely way to put it. I agree. Um, as I said, we have to be careful about talking about Phoebe.
Sure.
Um, and there's a wonderful twist. But after you revealed that twist, I had to reconsider what I had experienced.
Hmm.
And I think that you foreshadowed it in the most discreet way.
Okay.
Um, I'm trying to come up with a way to phrase this question without giving anything away, but without saying what it is. Did you always know you would do what you did? Or did you have like a brainstorm in the middle of draft seven and then have to go back and rewrite the first 80 pages?
I always knew I knew what the end was. It was the middle of the book that, like, I wasn't sure exactly how I would get there. And part of the fun to me of writing is seeing little bits of, yeah, foreshadowing and seeing little details come up and repeat themselves and finding out how it arrives at that point that I have in mind.
Uh, I use the expression act four. My
Mhm.
favorite part is when I finish the novel and then I realize that the first act is weak. And then but I need to justify all that happened subsequent to the first act. And then I need to go back in and make the first act stronger. I love that experience.
I was just going to ask, is that daunting or do you find that fun? It
No,
sounds
that's
fun.
the funnest because
Yeah.
you start editing your first act and you realize there's a lot of unnecessary open threads in there that
Yeah.
you did nothing with this, so get rid of it.
Yeah, totally.
And this little thing that you just brushed upon actually turned out to be meaningful, so pump it up. So I was very curious about that because and could you talk about your early drafts? And I tell you why I ask, and I don't want to be overly flattering, but you write with such confidence for a first-time novelist, and
Thank
it's
you.
not just in the flow of language or in character development, but in the audacity of the way you chose to tell the story. For example, was it always going to be alternate points of view?
Um, Pretty early on, yeah. It didn't really make sense to me as a book until I thought of Helen because I thought of Verity first, and I sort of wrote a few slapdash pages of him just kind of holding forth. But it probably a month or two later, I thought of Helen, and then it all really made sense to me. Um, for me, I edit really heavily as I write. I'm not such a like shitty first draft, get it out of your system and then go back and edit. I'm like constantly editing.
Mhm.
I don't know. I find that really helpful. I think it gives me a weird kind of confidence as I go. If I have a couple of paragraphs that I know I really like,
Yeah,
I'm more likely to continue. But for me, like a lot of it too is just when I know what the characters sound like, I'm okay. And then I can
right.
figure out the structure and just listen to them. Uh, I don't know. That's how it feels for me, I guess.
Yeah. I think that what the way you wrote it helped you avoid a trap for a lot of first-time novelists, and that is how to deal with backstory.
Yeah.
You don't have to weave it into the narrative. The characters can just tell us.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an ingenious way to do that. Um, has television been optioned?
No, we've just started talking to people about that. I'm kind of, to me, I think it would probably have to change quite a lot to work as a movie because it's so internal. But I'd be really interested to see what somebody would do with it.
Yeah, would you be interested in doing the screenplay?
Maybe, yeah. At the moment, I'm writing another book, so I'm kind of, in the obsession phase with that. But I could definitely find it really fun to write a screenplay version of television. Equally, it would be fun to see a director that I like do totally their own thing with it. I wouldn't be
Yeah,
pressed
yeah,
at
yeah.
all.
No, I do think that's one of the decisions that polyglots have to make, and that it would, of course, be fun and lucrative to do the screenplay yourself, but it would also be really revealing to see what somebody else would do with your ideas.
Yeah, and I almost wonder, like, so far I've kind of felt like sometimes other people are better at analyzing my book than I am because I'm like too close to it. And I wonder sometimes if someone else would actually be better at adapting it and sort of impersonally choosing what's cinematic about it and what's
Yeah.
not.
I think I may have mentioned this to you before we started recording, but I haven't liked any of the reviews that I've read.
Yeah, tell me. I'm interested.
No, I don't think they get to the point. I really don't. I think this book is not about what people in the reviews say it is.
Yeah.
And then we'll leave that up to the readers. They'll read the book and then they'll look up the reviews and they'll see. Do you want to talk about that next book, or is it too early?
Um, I think it's a little too early at the moment. I found this interesting thing that if I'm writing and I can trick myself into thinking nobody has to know anything I've done here, it's easier for me to, push ahead.
That's wonderful. My guest on this episode of Writers at Work has been Lauren Rothery, whose debut novel, Television, is an intriguing tale ingeniously told. Lauren, thanks so much for joining us on Writers at Work.
Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.
Writers at Work is a production of Bliss Publications. Erin Mitchell is our producer. Music is by Joni Mitchell, performed by Keith Jarrett. For more, see writersatworkpodcast.com. I'm your host, Jim Fusili. Until next time, happy reading.